love story. And then this attack tried to turn that into a murder story.
You subtitle your book, Knife, Meditations After an Attempted Murder. And you have described this book as an account of the forces of love triumphing over the forces of hatred. Tell me about the love.
Well, it's various kinds of love. I mean, the most important part is that my wife Eliza, the writer Rachel Eliza Griffiths. I mean, a wonderful poet, very fine novelist. Too many talents, really.
Videographer, you forgot.
Videographer, photographer. She and I had been together for, I guess, close to 5.5 years before the attack. And, we've been very happy. So, I mean, she wrote this very nice piece about what happened it was in The Guardian recently. And she said that it was as if we were already in a story. We were in a love story. And then this attack tried to turn that into a murder story. And what we've had to do in the, whatever it is, 20, 21 months since the attack is to try and reconstruct the love story. And I mean, the person who's done most of that reconstructing is her, not me, because she just took over. And when I was at my really lowest ebb, physically, but also psychologically and emotionally, she just took charge of everything. Everything had to go through her. If the FBI came in the room, they had to be interviewed by her before they could do anything else. And she dealt with the doctors, she dealt with everything. And she took care of me, and I think in a way the hardest thing that she did was not to show me her own trauma. So when she was in the room with me, she was like strong and loving and caring and attentive, and every so often she would go out of the room to scream. But she never showed me that part. And anyway, so we managed to do it, I think. We managed to rebuild the love story. So it feels like there's a love story with a murder story in the middle. Mm. And then, when my children, my sons both came to be with me and my sister, and that was all very important. And then beyond that, there was this kind of outpouring of affection from all over the place, from all over the world, people, total strangers. And actually, when you're lying in a trauma ward of a hospital, very, very close to not staying alive, and you feel that, it's strengthening. It actually does give you the strength to fight back, to resist. And so I was always have been very grateful for that. It was kind of this kind of tidal wave of solidarity, which was very nice to be on the receiving end of.
Why did you call it Knife?
Well, I mean, just two reasons. One is the obvious reason, which is that it starts with a knife attack. And then I thought, the way my head works in a very kind of free associative way. So if I'm involved with a knife, I begin to think about other knives. And so I started thinking about knives that I knew about in art and film and books and so on. And then I thought that language itself is a kind of tool which I can use to fight back, if you like. So I began to think of language and this book as being kind of my knife, which is not in order to injure anybody, but in order to cut things open and understand and explain them. And so I thought in the end the book is named after a knife, but in a kind of metaphorical way, it is a knife.
You make the decision not to name the assailant, the would-be assassin. You call him the A. Mm. And you also made the decision to write Knife in the first person. Your previous memoir, Joseph Anton, was written in the third. Mm. Can I ask why you made those decisions?
Well, the not naming him was, I just didn't want his name in my book.
Yes, fair enough. Yes.
and also what I think is that, he had his 27 seconds of celebrity, and now he should go back to being nobody. And I actually remembered this thing that Margaret Thatcher used to say about the IRA. She said, don't give them the oxygen of publicity. And I thought, okay, let's not give this guy the oxygen of publicity. It's one of the few moments in my life when I've been inspired by Margaret Thatcher.
There's more than one.
Well, actually, back in the bad old days when there was this major police protection here, I mean, I met her a couple of times when she was prime minister, and the most unexpected thing about Margaret Thatcher is that she's very touchy-feely.
With men, I hear.
Yeah, she put her hands on your arm and shoulders and how are you, dear, etc. It's very kind of in a way auntie-like, but very unexpected and quite disarming. It's hard to feel hostile towards somebody who's being so physically affectionate towards you. Anyway, yeah. So Margaret Thatcher, the oxygen of publicity, that phrase stuck in my head, and I thought, let's not give him that. And the third person, well, when I wrote that earlier book, Joseph Anton, it was quite a long time after the events that were described in the book. It was several years later. And what I thought is that the me who was writing that book was sort of slightly different than the me who was being written about. I was in a better place. I was in a better spirit. Life had improved. And the person being written about was in a very difficult situation and under a lot of stress and so on. And so I thought there's a little distance between the two me's, and the third person, in a way, dramatized that difference. And this time, there's no distance at all between the two. But the thing about that is, if somebody attacks you with a knife and is right up close to you, etc., that feels very first person. That doesn't. I thought there's no way this can be written except in the first person. But also, it's a very unguarded and kind of undefended book, and I think it doesn't require the distance of the third person.
Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out the full episode of How to Fail on your preferred podcast platform, and also be sure to follow us on social media for the latest updates.